Hello, welcome to What Culture Gaming. I'm Josh, joined by the man who plays everything, Scott Tilford, because by the sounds of things, Bungie are working on a new game, and it won't be Destiny. Thank the Lord! This information comes from Bungie themselves, who have announced a partnership with a Chinese company called NetEase, who have given them $100 million, Scott, you heard that right, to create new experiences in new worlds.
Oh, thank God!
I mean, don't get your hopes up yet, Scott, because they're still going to be working on Destiny. They say, obviously fans of Destiny aren't going to be affected too much because they're still committed to that universe, but they are definitely working on something new and new experiences, which is great.
So what it takes to get out of the Activision dungeon is $100 million?
$100 million by a Chinese company. Here's the thing, though.
Go on.
I'm not convinced they're out the Activision dungeon, because NetEase, the company who have worked almost exclusively with Blizzard so far, helping them on games like licensing titles like Overwatch and Hearthstone, and they've also licensed Minecraft as well.
Okay.
So it's still very much sounds like it's still very much in sort of partnership with Activision.
Right, okay, but at least that's the thing. It's always up for debate as to, because Bungie initially were like, we're going to go independent, we're going to separate from Halo, we're going to do our own thing. Yeah. We're going to sign with Activision, then we're going to basically remake Halo in terms of the basic beats of that story. Trading out the Halo rings for the Traveler and all that kind of thing. But with the general details to this, for the bits that you told me beforehand, seem to be that they're branching out into doing new ideas.
Yeah, well, the direct quote from Bungie themselves was that this money would help us explore new directions and help support separate teams inside Bungie. So you would assume this is a sort of, there's a lot of people working at Bungie, a lot of people wanted to do different things on the original development of Destiny. A lot of, half the team wanted it to be an FPS, half of the team wanted it to be something completely different. Okay. So you would assume the team that wanted to be completely different would benefit from this because they get to explore their own ideas and not have to be tied down to the franchise that has now become just...
Destiny's not viewed in a good light. Let's be completely honest. We always give it a shot, and the basic mechanics of that game are immaculate in terms of the way that it plays. It should be the best premier first-person shooter on the market, but the way that they've handled it, and it's going to be one of those things that comes out in the wash, whether it comes out years down the line, as to how much Activision have pilfered it and put lots of microtransaction systems, all that kind of stuff, into the game. But the Bungie are a hell of a talented developer, and it's they're responsible for a hell of a lot of our childhood memories in regards to Halo, and it was just a shame to see something like Destiny just fall on its face, and then Destiny 2 not be the meaningful expansion that it needed to be. Yeah. And so any news that they're breaking free of the current trajectory they're on is, for me, welcomed with open arms. Just do something else.
100%. For me, I take no pleasure in sort of the demise of Destiny, you know what I mean? I wanted that franchise to work. I wasn't a fan of Destiny 1, but when I heard they were sort of expanding on listening to problems to go into the sequel, and then that didn't really happen, that was cripplingly disappointing for someone like me who wants to love the stuff Bungie does, and their gameplay systems are still excellent. Yeah. It's just dragged down, you would assume, by decisions by Activision, but then again, Bungie themselves haven't really done themselves any favors by communicating to their fans pretty poorly.
And it's if you go back in time to before the release of the original Destiny, actually this story came out just after the first Destiny, but there was this massive write-up by Kotaku, behind the scenes, talking to all the team members, and it was basically Bungie's higher-ups who scrapped the original vision for the game. It was only a few months before launch, so they had to scrabble to get something back together. It was why a whole bunch of stuff from the trailers didn't make it into the final game, and it just kind of seems like the whole project's then been playing catch-up. Yeah. You can go and read about all this stuff as to how temperamental the game engine they were working with was, and if they ever wanted to update something, they had to wait a full day to see their changes. It would be like changing a Word document and having to wait a day to see what the new sentence looked like. It was as hard as that for them to get through. And then Destiny 2 just felt like this weird, and it's obviously insulting to them, but it's not necessarily meant to be, glorified expansion. Yeah. And it was one of those things where we wanted a meaningful change, and we saw cutscenes get put in, and they seem to be oh my god, it's getting closer to what we want. But it's a shell of what Halo used to be, especially in terms of cultural clout. Destiny does not pull crowds like Halo used to.
No, definitely not. Even in its post-release content, a lot of people had problems with Destiny at launch. It didn't review anywhere near as well as people thought it would. Yeah. But Bungie were at least committed to pushing out really good expansions that sort of brought players back. Mm-hmm. Whereas you haven't kind of seen that with Destiny 2 as of yet. No. With every new DLC expansion, people seem to be just getting more burned on the franchise as a whole. So hopefully this new partnership will get them give them the opportunity to sort of break away from all of that just kind of negativity. And
and it's just like, it's one of those things where, like, obviously the industry's shifting right now anyway, because there's a lot of different approaches to microtransactions and different loot box, blind box systems in place. Like, we're seeing Battlefield 5 completely move away from that stuff. Battlefront, like, had to change obviously we hold the fallout from the Star Wars Battlefront thing, and they've had to kind of remix their game. I think that the industry's in flux as regards to different monetization options inside games, and they just can't keep going forward with it. Like, Destiny doesn't feel like a product that respects the consumer's time. Like, from the hours I put into it, I mean, I really do give these games a good shot, and it always felt like you were missing out on something because you couldn't cough up the cash to get better stuff. And it's one of those things, and even the player base has been more than vocal about how disappointed.
100%. I think the difference between companies like EA and Activision, who obviously like were all in on loot boxes, if there is a backlash to an EA game, they will at least like pay lip service to listening, and they will take microtransactions out, and they will like try to make amends for it. It's up to you whether you think that's like good enough, but they at least try. Whereas Activision, on the other hand, just sort of take it on the chin. They're like, well, people are complaining, but we're still going to have loot boxes in. Like, they don't have a public face in the same way that EA does, which I think lets them get away with a lot more, as you've seen with like Destiny and stuff.
True, and the couple of times that they have had a public face, I think he's called Luke Smith, their community manager. Whenever he's spoken on behalf of the community, and Luke Smith is a very honest, like very just open guy, and you can that works against him as much as it does in his favor. But he was the guy that had the whole conversation around, like, you'll be throwing money at the screen.
Oh yeah, okay.
And like all that kind of thing. And obviously that got misinterpreted. But there's lots of things like that. There are lots of little things that contribute to the idea that Destiny is not in a good financial position, and the only thing that they're relying on is the addiction or the sort of general, I don't know, satisfaction that some players have just playing the game. It's not a narrative pull. It's not anything other than this feels fun to headshot someone.
Exactly.
And they need more than that. So it's not sustainable in the long run.
And again, I suppose we'll have to see in the long run whether or not this deal sort of pulls out. But at the minute, all we know is from Bungie themselves is that they've signed this partnership with NetEase. They've got $100 million to play with. And it probably won't be a Destiny game. That's enough to get me excited. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. As always, I've been Josh.
I've been Scott.
You've been watching What Culture Gaming, and I'll see you soon.
Goodbye.
Bye.